Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, where two busy dads get games to the table by any means necessary. Check us out, along with other great podcasts, at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 107, GenCon Reviews, Part 7. Fun for the family. Hey everybody, welcome back to Every Night is Game Night. This is Anthony once again with Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
All right, guys, we have a whopping number 7 in our GenCon review series. Yep, it is October. Yep, we're still talking about GenCon somehow.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Oh my god. I mean, okay, so we stretched out a little bit. We dedicated one whole episode to Root. I'd say it was deserved, whether you like the game or not.
it's everywhere, so we had to talk about it.
Yeah, since that review came out, the Shut Up and Sit Down review came out of Root. I don't know if you got a chance to see that one.
A little bit, yeah. No, it was an interesting review.
They just don't like anything.
Yeah, I know.
If it's hot and it's a big game out of GenCon,
I cannot figure out what their tastes are. Like, you look at some people are like, oh, they like Ameritrash. Oh, they like heavier games. Oh, they like stuff with luck. Shut Up and Sit Down is like, I don't know, they like some random children's games, a handful of really heavy games, and not much else. I don't know.
Love Ethnos, which is like...
Oh, yeah. Ethnos is on my filler shelf. I bring that one, I'm like, there might be 6 people and I need a 45-minute game, I guess. It's not that good.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Anyway, so we gave you a little bit of coverage of Root. We give you coverage of a whole bunch of a pile of games off of GenCon. We're ending off here. I know we talked in the initial part that we were going to kind of go up from light complexity to greater complexity. Yeah, this is not the greatest complexity games. But in a way, this is kind of what GenCon is all about. Like, there's a billion of these family weight 30 to 60 minute games that come out during GenCon. They're not quite in our wheelhouse. As I don't get Every Night is Game Night. I think Anthony and I's taste tend to run a little bit either heavier or more thematic or whatever, but you can't deny the power of these games. These are the games that are, they're the first games that people see. They're the games that we introduce our families to, and you get a whole bunch of them at GenCon. So we figured this would be a nice little capstone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's some interesting stuff in here. It's worth talking about.
Yeah, so we have some pretty strong games in the slate, I'd say. The games are Everdell, The Big Score, Petrichor, and I was looking forward to this one. This was my game of the con, so to speak, in terms of anticipation, Forbidden Sky. But before we do that, first we are going to get to Liz for the In Liz We Trust segment. Liz, tell us about yet another awesome Kickstarter.
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here once again to encourage your Every Night is Game Night acquisition disorder. This week I want to talk about Heroes of Tenefir, a Kickstarter project from a new publisher, Broken Mill. This game is a cooperative deck building game that claims to be teachable in about 5 minutes. In Heroes of Tenefir, you and your party will enter dungeons, acquire new cards by defeating enemies and converting them into loot, and prepare to fight a final boss. Combat in this game is based on a push your luck mechanic in which you can continue drawing as many cards as you like. But be careful. Whenever you need to take a rest and refresh your deck, you'll bring yourself closer to a final confrontation with the boss monster. This game isn't too pricey. It's about $20 plus about $9 in shipping to the United States. If you want a quick, easy-to-learn fantasy deck builder, and you'd like to support newer, smaller publishers, Heroes of Tenefir may be for you. Happy gaming!
All right. Thank you very much, Liz. I actually, as opposed to the Euro episode, I feel like the game she talks about is going to fit into this slot somehow, like in terms of like that family weight, solo friendly game. So thanks very much, Liz. And we look forward to what you're bringing us next week. Okay, so we are going to launch in. Anthony's going to lead us off with a game from Starling Games, which is a funny story because if you listen to the Dice Towers looking forward to whatever games at GenCon before the show started, this was number 1 on Z's list, and he's like, Everdell from this company I've never heard of, Starling Games. And Tom was like, oh, that's Game Sleuth, don't worry about them. So it was like, wah, wah. But Everdell's still there. It's still launched. And let's see if it is a game that is worth for you guys. Check it out.
Yeah. The same thing happened to me, actually. I backed this thing on Kickstarter. Did not know that Game Salute had rebranded. Yes, I do a podcast, but I don't know everything, guys. Come on.
I had no idea.
No, I mean, it was like right when they did it. So I didn't realize. And it looked really pretty. It has beautiful artwork, little woodland creatures. I was smitten with the art design. But the game is released by Starling Games, which is Game Salute rebranded. And they've released a few games recently. This was one. Archmage was another. Both of them kind of shipped around the same time. Both of them shipped a little bit early, and both of them were relatively decent productions. So kind of the main issues everybody had long-term with Game Salute didn't really manifest with this particular campaign. It was a really good one. The game itself is an interesting one. At first glance, it seems incredibly overproduced. You have this big three-dimensional cardboard tree. You have this big wide board that holds all your pieces and a tableau of cards to pull from. Giant deck of cards, lots of different variety there. And in the end, all it really is a tableau builder with some worker placement elements. But I think all of those bells and whistles, while not strictly necessary, do add a little bit to the game. A little bit of, the touch and feel of things. We'll get to a little bit of like what the pieces are later. But I just right off the top want to say I don't think it's as overproduced as some people say. But like any game on Kickstarter, it's a little overproduced. As for the game itself, like I said, it's got some worker placement elements. You start the game with 2 workers. By the end, you have 6. So there's 4 rounds, and every round you're going to gain new workers. The workers themselves, though, outside of the first round, they're not really the driving force of the game. So on your turn, you can place a worker, and when you do that, you can get any number of resources. There's wood, there's berries, there's little gems, there's stones. And
they're really nice.
Yeah.
You're not just getting like little tokens. They're like little rubber berries and, the shiny gems for the resin or whatever it is. It's nice stuff.
I was impressed by the berries too, because they're round, but they don't really roll because they made them out of this little squishy rubber stuff. The wood rolls. So you need like
oh God, please. Can we get the little pyramid stacks of wood so they don't roll? Come on now.
Yeah. I got a little cup for them. And nice little metal coins if you kickstarted it. Lots of good stuff here. And these are all the things you're going to use to play the cards that end up in your hand. You start the game with a few in your hand. You can pick up more along the way. But the thing that really drives the game is the card play. There's a tableau of 8 that everybody shares. You start with at least 5 at the beginning of the game. And there are constructions and there are critters. You can play constructions, and each of these comes in one of, I think, 5 or 6 different suits. Some of them have immediate effects. Some of them are production effects, which are also immediate, but also trigger later again. Some of them are endgame points. Lots of different things they can do. The typical stuff. The interesting thing here, too, is it has kind of that 7 Wonders mechanic of if you play a construction and then later play a critter that can go in that construction, you can play the critter for free, as long as that construction is empty. Meaning you haven't done that already with that card. So it's kind of a nice way to chain things and get sets of stuff that go together. The reason that the worker placement kind of takes a backseat pretty quickly in the second round is that a lot of these cards give you extra resources or trigger bonus effects or allow you to build extra cards or do all these other things where when you first start the game, the first time I played it, I legit looked at it and said, I must have read the rules wrong because I don't see how I'm going to get enough stuff to do anything interesting. And your tableau can be 15 cards. You have 15 spaces. It's 5 by 3. So you look at that and you're like, I'm not going to fill this in 4 rounds. But pretty quickly you start to ramp up and get a lot of stuff out there. Then by the end of the second round, going into the third, you're like, okay, never mind. This stuff all chains together pretty well.
It's funny, like you mentioned before, that's a worker placement game, but like you can play a card in your turn, and that is not a worker you place. So as long as you can place it or pay for it or however that works out, like you can pretty much like get a lot of actions in that are outside of that worker placement turn. So it's almost like you don't want to call it a worker placement because it sets people's expectations to a certain way, and it's more of a card game. Like I actually felt like this was a little bit of a race for the galaxy-ish mix, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. The way the game ends up working is that the workers are almost there to help you jumpstart when you run out of things to do. Like, oh, you know what? My chain of special effects finally ended. I now need to go get some more resources. Or, you know what? I actually have enough stuff that I can complete one of these special events. I'm going to go do that. There's these tiles that you can pick up for collecting a certain number of suits of cards or the special events that relate to having certain combinations of buildings, you can pick those up with your workers as well. At the end of the game, you can spend workers and just dump cards for points too, which is kind of a cool thing. So you're not just stuck with extra stuff you can't use at the end. I really enjoyed this game a lot more than I thought I would initially, just because it is kind of that medium family weight style game, but it's got that Race for the Galaxy-ish feel, like you said, that you're building this unique tableau and trying to maximize the efficiency and chain things together in a certain way. Mm-hmm. Now, there is some limitation in terms of like the cards you see or the cards that are available. There are some abilities that let you like cycle those out and look for new ones. But if you're looking for a specific card, it's a really big deck. So you might not see the card you need in time to use it to do the thing you're trying to do. So you got to stay a little flexible. But I mean, in general, overall, I felt like it offered a lot of interesting decisions. Game rounds, they ramp up. But they don't ramp up too much. That third round where you don't get production again kind of is a little bit quicker because you just kind of rush, you have to build up some stuff and use your workers that time. Whereas the final round really can go a little bit longer and let you try out new stuff. I really liked it.
Yeah, and it has a pretty neat solo mode. The solo mode is basically, the workers take up spaces. So as at the beginning, that you have one worker that kind of blocks one of the production spaces. And then as more of the bot workers come out, then you lose access to cards in the market. So it's basically like a denial of resources and kind of a points race from there. So it's not like the most complicated thing in the world, which is good. I felt like, enough of a challenge. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but I love the game enough to where a little bit of opposition was pretty welcome, and I was happy with my solo plays. I dig this game. I really do. Like the overproduction is, give it to me.
Yeah, right. I know it actually really works here.
The pictures are amazing. Like you have the little husband and the wife, and the husband goes with the wife, and and what you were saying before about you might not get the card that you need. Like, okay, fine, because there's a big fat deck. But let's say you have a husband who's basically worthless without the wife. I don't know what the games are trying to say about that, but the husband literally does nothing without the wife. And you're waiting for a wife card. There's other cards that you can say, okay, I'm going to take this husband, I'm going to chuck him and get something else and put another card in there. So it's not like you can pivot. You're not just like stuck there in your little strategy. And the fact that I'm talking about this stuff, like you can kind of pivot your strategy, you can mold your tableau, you can, like Anthony was saying, fire off, whatever chaining, stuff like that. That's all here. And, in a family weight, easy to grasp idea. This isn't like the most brain burning game in the world, but it gives you a little bit of that satisfying feeling. Oh my God, it's on my shelf right now. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, this was really, really a nice surprise. And the only negative thing I would say, and it's not really negative, it's just something to be aware of, is that because it's a tableau of 15 cards and sometimes more, depending what there's certain cards you can put out there that don't count towards that, there's a lot of tracking. So if you have cards out there that trigger when you do something else, you're going to want to stack those in a certain area and keep track of them and make sure you know what's triggering and when it's triggering, because it's easy to miss the things that your tableau is doing when it's doing it. Especially when you get into the third and fourth round and you have like 10 plus cards out there, even more so than like a Race for the Galaxy where you don't have that many cards.
Although what I will say is, like, by the time you get to that third or fourth round, you're really focusing on the cards that can score.
Sure.
Because once that production phase ends and like the cards that you put out that are production, they no longer do anything. So you can focus on, okay, I have a king and I have a queen card and they give me points and they combo off of these things. So I'm just focusing on those cards. So it's not, I didn't have as much of a struggle with that. And everything kind of made sense. Dude, just take a look at it. I talked a lot of smack about this game as being like, it looked a little overproduced and like blah, blah, blah. Okay, nuts to me. Shame on you, reviewer. Shame on you.
Yeah, again, we're in that Slack group. People kept bringing it up, and you're like, nah, don't play that. Don't try that. It looks horrible.
I thought it was overproduced. I thought it was just like regular old worker. No, it isn't. This is not a worker placement game. It's a tableau building game. Clever card play. Guys know I like my card play. Decent enough solo with like a little bit of opposition. I'm really digging this. This is Everdell. Kudos to Game Salute. We had Brendan Noonan on to talk about Planetarium in one of the previous series, and we have Archmage coming up as a review. Man, Okay, Game Sleuth really turned it around. I might have to adjust my brain on them.
Yeah, no, between this and Archmage, which I also really, really enjoyed, it's a 1-2 punch out of nowhere because it's been a long time since I played one of their games and was like, oh, good. So it was nice.
Awesome. So that was Everdell. So now we're going to get to another game, family weight game. So this is The Big Score. The Big Score is designed by Jason Mowry and Chase Williams, published by Van Ryder Games. Now, Van Ryder Games, we love AJ. We've had AJ on the show. Van Ryder is a very big friend to Solo, so I was looking forward to kind of breaking this open, see what's going on. So The Big Score is a game for 1 to 6 players about a bunch of mobsters trying to get rich. That's kind of the overlay, the theme overlay. It's really a card drafting game. Like you're thinking in the family, a Seven Wonders and a Paper Tales, which Anthony reviewed. It's one of the drafting game. It's not the heaviest thing in the world. So there are 2 main phases to this particular drafting game. The first is the warm up, which is where the actual drafting happens, and the drafting is of these deck of cards which depict henchmen. The henchmen are things like the hitman and the driver or something like that, but they're really just like color coded. And what you're going to be doing is you're drafting for the purpose of being able to solve a bunch of case card or job cards, which are an essential tableau. So you're color matching. So you draft up your hand and then you look at what's available and you say, okay, I want to do the bank robbery. I want to do the, whatever jobs are there. You get those rewards and you kind of move on, you kind of move on through play. What's unique about this game is that in terms of a card drafter, in terms of this first phase, it's not really like a hate drafting type scenario. Like in Seven Wonders, you're doing, if you know what's going on in Seven Wonders, you're going to have to deny people other resources. Like, okay, give me that science. You're not going to complete that fourth gear or whatever it is. Or, in Sushi Go, you don't want people to multiply their sushi or whatever it is. Here, because the way it works is like whoever finishes a job, whoever is on the job, they get the reward. It's not like it's, me or you. Like whoever's on the job and if you satisfy the scenario, you get the job. So, everybody shares in that. So it's not like you're trying to deny other people resources. What you're trying to do is you're trying to look at your opponents in the table and kind of depending on what you drafted and what rewards they already have, you're trying to figure out where they're going to go. So the smartest play in this game is like, okay, you do your jobs, but then you say, okay, that person's trying to get that particular job. I'm going to sneak a hitman over there to get on the job and get in on those resources that he spent the majority of his resources for. So you're really trying to put your finger in a lot of different pies and get as much money as possible, which I found to be a more satisfying experience because I'm a big Care Bear. I don't want to hate draft. I don't want to screw my own tableau and, just for the sake of screwing somebody else's tableau. I don't find that satisfying play. Here, it's like everybody wins if we can get into each other's heads and, figure out where we're going to complete those jobs. So that was pretty cool. That's my favorite part of the game is that first part. So then you gather a bunch of resources. You might even upgrade one of your henchmen into like a super henchman or whatever it is. And then you enter in the second phase, which is the big score phase. Now, this phase resembles a little bit more like Ink and Gold, which is now called Diamant or was originally called Diamant or whatever it is. It's basically this push your luck mechanism. So you're going to be reaching into a quote unquote vault. There's a bunch of tokens and you pull out and either you leave and just keep your money and, count it up, or you're trying to get more and more money. So it's basically like a big catch up mechanism for people who didn't do well in the first phase. You can either get more money or you can pull these cop tokens. And if you get too many cop tokens, you bust. And then that's the end of the game. Not as much in love with that, but I can see the family friendliness of it. And, people laugh. It's like, oh, the cops, and you can bribe the cops and funny games, all that kind of stuff. As a package, I thought it was fun as a multiplayer game. So for the reasons that I stated, I just kind of weaved it into the review, getting into each other's heads, sneaking onto other people's jobs, figuring out what they're going to do and not hate drafting. Perfect. I love it. That is great stuff. Can recommend that as a multiplayer. There's a solo. Actually, before I even get to that, Anthony, have you played this game?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay, I do recommend it. I don't know what kind of drafting fan you are. Does that sound like play that you'd be more interested in, or are you more into the kind of like let me just make my best tableau and deny other people stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I like drafting in general, and so if it's implemented right, it doesn't really matter style or the way it works out. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of press your luck stuff unless it's like a straight up party game, but if it's done right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pressure luck stuff is a catch-up mechanism for people who get a little bit, hosed on the draft. It's like, okay, and it creates a little bit of excitement. So yeah, I mean, I'm not thrilled by that as well, but hey, I could see where it fits, and I could see thematically, it's like, okay, now we've got a bunch of small jobs, now we're breaking into a vault. So okay, I'm cool with that. So there's this solo mode, and it's weird because this is a social drafting game with a solo mode, independently designed by AJ Porfirio. It's kind of the same rhythm where you have your hand of cards, which are the henchmen, and then so you're gonna split up this kind of biggish deck of big henchman deck into smaller, like 3 smaller decks. You're gonna go through that deck and you're gonna complete as many jobs as possible that are in the market. But instead of drafting, you're gonna be buying of cards. So like you pick up a hand, and then you can pay a certain amount of money to kind of keep going in the deck, or either pull more cards or change out cards for cards. So you have to manage, like let's say you want to get a certain number of jobs done, you need like a hitman. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to spend that extra $1,000 and try to draw a hitman. Oh, I didn't draw a hitman. I'm going to a little bit push your luckish, a little bit, kind of managing your money, seeing whether a job is worth it to devote all that money to. It's definitely not, it doesn't feel like the base game. It feels more like a kind of this economic hand management type deal. I didn't like it. I didn't like it for one very simple reason. So the henchman cards are single use. Like it's basically like playing a deck of solitaire. So in multi-use card games, you do a bunch of stuff like you can trade 2 cards as a wild, and I can trade 3 cards for money and whatever it is. No, you just get what you just get. So let's say you have a bunch of job cards out there, and all of them require hitmen, purple cards or whatever it is. And there's only 3 hitmen in your deck of 30 cards. You're paying money, and you're not getting, like, the hitman's not even there. It's just like you're stupid. And then by the time you run out of the deck, you realize, oh, I spent all that money on nothing. There was nothing there. That's just a very defeating purpose to me. It's like the win, or like how well I could do on the jobs was already in the deck. I'm only just playing it out. It's like solitaire, like Klondike Solitaire. The win is already in the deck. I'm just kind of doing. Like I don't have a lot of agency there. I don't know if I'm being clear, or like if I'm kind of giving a sense for what's really happening there.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of game in general, it drives me crazy. Like you want to feel like you have control over what's happening, or that, you can look back at it and like, oh, if I'd done this instead of just being like, right. Well, that's how the cards came out. So.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, I can't, if I look back at this game and, like, I say, okay, I could have not chosen to draw all those extra cards and spend all this extra money, but I didn't know that. And then once you get to the kind of the back end of that part, you kind of, now you can have a lot more information. This many cards got discarded. There's this many cards left in the deck, but then you get into a card counting scenario. I don't find that fun either. I just, I renewed my love for multi-use cards. I renewed my love for just like cards with a little bit more flexibility and like this kind of solitaire. It's kind of a pass. It's a really great effort on AJ's part. Cause I know he's very dedicated to solo. And if you do like that type of play, like kind of solitaire, Klondike Solitaire-ish play, where it's, you're okay with, just the action of it as opposed to being invested in all the strategic, options, then it's a decent one. It's just not for me. So for me personally, passing the solo, but definitely the actual base game itself, I can give a pretty high recommendation. So that is the big score.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to check it out if it hits the table with a group. But yeah,
a big group. This is the bigger the better. The bigger the better on this one.
Awesome. All right, so the next one up here for me is Petrichor, and this was...
I'm really looking forward to this. It's Petrichor. Why am I so excited?
I don't know if you should be.
It's clouds and rain and raindrops.
Yeah. I mean, this is a game that very much like Everdell, I was like, ooh, I'm all in based on the presentation and theme alone. Now, the theme here is... I mean, it's there, and the game is about you're a cloud. You are literally a cloud, and your goal is to make more clouds and water the crops.
That is so awesome. I've never seen that in a game. That is so cool.
I mean, in a world of war games where you're lopping off each other's heads, this is very, very low-key, which is nice. It's relaxing. It's the kind of theme. It's like, for me, it kind of fits in that like Takedo Takanoko bucket of just like, this is calm. We can play some music in the background. It's nice. The gameplay doesn't always support that. It's a little bit fiddly, and I'll get into why, but it does have some interesting ideas. So the basic idea of the game here, and you can play it over 4 rounds or 6. There's a 2-sided board, so there's a short game or a long game. And the long game does run a little bit long, so especially if you're playing with a family or lighter gamers, short game is recommended. But over the course of the game, you're going to take actions using different cards in your hand that each correspond to different weather effects. So you have the various different things that happen. You have the wind, you have sun, you have frost, and each of them allows you to do something different. Some of them allow you to add more raindrops to the clouds. Some of them allow you to move your clouds. Some of them allow you to put more clouds out on the board. So
I feel calmer already. I love the idea of this game. I haven't even played it. Just tell me, give me some good news, man.
All right. I mean, hopefully. The core mechanisms here, very nice, very elegant. You have a tableau of crops that you put out that you're watering. And in the base game, they're all fairly basic. There's a couple that are a little different, like the wheat and the potatoes have like different like collection type of mechanics. But most of them are just, if you have the most raindrops here, you're going to score the most points. So it's area control on these little tiles, but the mechanics are all about moving your clouds around and getting them to drop the rain. Clouds are these great little cardboard buckets that look like clouds. When the cloud gets big enough, when it has enough raindrops in it, it becomes a thundercloud, and you add a little cardboard thunder to it, so you can tell which ones are or I guess lightning to it, so you can tell which ones are the thunderclouds.
That's so cool.
The clouds can run into each other, and then they combine, so you can have multiple different people's raindrops in there. So lots of cool stuff you can do with the clouds, right? The weird thing about this game, and it makes sense from a balancing perspective, but I still don't know what I think about it, is the voting mechanism. So when you play a card, you're not just going to take an action, you're also going to place towards a vote. So you have vote tokens, and you're going to place them in either the action that you took or other possible actions based on what's listed on the card. So things to the right or to the left of it. And there's those 4 different action types, the frost, sun, wind, and rain. And at the end of the round, the 2 action types that have the most votes are going to activate. And then whoever has the most votes wins the vote and gets to choose what to do with that special extra action. There's a lot of space in the rulebook devoted to this mechanism, and it's a little fiddly and hard to wrap your head around at first, especially with like newer gamers. Brought this with my full-time Euro group, and everybody clicked, no problem. But it feels like a little bit too much going on. It's fine, and it does balance things out a little bit, and it does add a little bit of interesting twist to the game. So there's like this kind of extra mechanism happening in the background. But I'm just not sure what I think of that part. The harvest phase happens after that, and this is when you grow the crop. So if there's enough water drops on the plant itself, it's going to harvest, and then everybody's going to score points, and then all those raindrops are going to go away, and you're going to have to do it all over again. And that's pretty much the flow of the game. You take actions, you vote, the weather phase, you do the harvest phase. And then there are these harvest dice as well that you roll, and the dice, they correspond to several things. I mean, if they are all rolled down to the harvest, then the harvest happens. If they're not, however, the harvest does not happen, which is an interesting twist that can happen. Because when you vote, you can choose to turn the die down and get a point instead of actually voting, which if nobody does it, then the harvest never happens, which kind of messes everything up. So definitely some stuff to think about there. Overall, though, I really like the core idea of the game. Like, I had the exact same response that you did of like, oh, this is so like just relaxing and non-combative. Even when we hit each other, we're combining. It's great. But the voting mechanism was a little bit out of place. Not 100% sure I like that. The game itself, too, does get a little bit repetitive just because you have a limited number of crops, and most of them don't do anything special. There is, however, an expansion that you can get with it that adds, a handful of new crop types, each of them fairly unique and different, doing some cool stuff. So those are worth checking out if you like the game or if you want it to be just a little bit heavier. The solo play, this is designed by David Turczi, so it's going to be interesting. There's a deck of cards, the Southern Wind deck, and the game, it has to be 4 rounds. The map's a little bit smaller. The cards are basically going to tell you how things move. So, it's just a list of different locations based on the chart of the tiles that you put out, and it'll determine where things are happening or how they're happening. I don't know. It's a good game. It has a unique theme. It's very, very pretty. It has a great table presence. The solo game is definitely solid. I like it. The game is just a little bit overwrought, though. Takes a little bit of time to get things down right. There's a lot of fiddly edge cases for a game of this weight. I mean, it's not a fiddly game necessarily, but I feel like it should be a little more elegant considering the theme. I don't think it's bad by any means. I still think it's this game falls into my 7 range. If I was going to rank it. And, we've talked about this before. A 7 is good, but I'm probably not going to keep it,
Yeah. Especially in this space. So, there's not a ton of Euros. There's not a ton of co-ops. There's certain subgroups that we talk about are, kind of limited in space. So, if we say a game is a 7, it's a player, whatever it is, then it might be worth a look because it's unique. But if you're a family weight, 30 to 60 minute game, and you're kind of riding on the cool theme and everything, it's got to really stand out in order to just not be in a basement, soon. I think of a game called Oceanos, which came out maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Another family weight, okay game that you can now buy for $3.
Yeah.
And I could go up and down of these type of games where if they're not tight, and if there's a little bit of rough patch to it, then it's just gonna fall by the wayside and, not rise above the giant tons of other games that are coming out in this very con.
I mean, that's exactly what happens too. You get a game of this weight and you feel like it should be for families. It should be for newer gamers. And then it has a few things in it that just throw wrenches in that. I wouldn't play this with my family. It's just a little bit too much, but I wouldn't play this with my Euro friends either because it's not enough. So it's just, It's kind of in that middle gray area. If it wasn't for the solo, I think my review would be even a little bit lower just because the multiplayer did fall a bit flat. And I do like the solo mode. But there was at least one player, both times I played it, who loved it. So I think the theme does do a lot for it. If you're looking for something that's not, like I said, not lopping off heads, or rushing the castle or just the heavy theme stuff. It's very unique. Nothing's like it. It's very, very pretty. It's very bright. It's a lot of white colors. It's very evocative of what it's trying to do. It's just mechanically, it's not quite there.
Yeah. So that was Petrichor. Petrichor, by the way, being a scientific term, right? It's for condensation or something like that.
It's the smell of the ground right after it rains, I think. Yeah, right? Exactly. It fits.
I wish it was a little bit better. I can see what you're talking about, though. I mean, I have Takenoko and Tokaido, games that fill that role for me. It's got to really stand out in order to, make it to my shelf. But anyway, this game, though, this is the capstone of our entire GenCon review. I put this last for a reason because I think he's the man, Matt Leacock. He is, he's been on the show before. This is Forbidden Sky. I've been looking forward to this game ever since the announcement. So this is the third in the Forbidden series, following up Island and Desert. And in a weird way, it's kind of following up on a story, quote unquote, as well. So in Desert, you went around the desert and you had to find your airship pieces. You had to put together your little flying machine and then putter away. In this game, and they actually represent the flying machine on one of the tiles, which is pretty adorable. You're transferring from your flying machine to a rocket, and the rocket is going to blast you off to the next game or whatever it is. Maybe it'll be Forbidden Space or Forbidden. Well, we already have Forbidden Stars. It can't be that.
Forbidden Planet. It's gotta be Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Crossover. It's going to be great. That's awesome. So thematically, your start, you get to this flying platform, and you have to find this rocket. Only there's a storm, and the sky platform is very dangerous. There's lightning, and there's wind, and all sorts of other stuff that's going to knock you all over the place. Thematically, I thought it was pretty cool. Mechanically, you guys may have heard this. It's a tile laying game. So you don't know what the shape, that flying platform looks like. You kind of make it. And maybe it's representing discovering it in the part in the fog or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. You're laying tiles. And so what happens is you're going to move around the board. You're going to pull, there's a deck of tiles, and you're going to lay them down slowly. And you're going to do so trying to accomplish two different goals. The main thing you're going to do is you're going to construct the platform for the airship itself. So that's a select group of tiles. It's this kind of red circle thing, and you have to put together 4 of them. Once you finish that circle, you get to put on this little metal platform, and then you put a toy ship on top of the platform. Yeah, I know, guys. The toy factor here is unbelievable. So the little metal platform is pretty particular, and it relates to the second thing you have to do in order to win, which is... So follow me here, guys. I know that Anthony over here is a little bit younger than me. He did not take shop when he was in school. I took shop, and I completed series circuits in order to light up light bulbs. And that's kind of what you're doing here. You have to take the platform, and it's split up into 2 parts, and you have to link one part to the other in a series circuit. So the series circuit are the series of metal rods that are going to get placed around the board on these little circle magnets that get placed on the board as you put down tiles. So just imagine that you're going to be placing tiles, and then occasionally on the printed circles, you're going to be putting down these little metal circles, and then you're going to be placing these metal rods. These little things are not like huge. They're supposed to represent wiring. And you're going to complete a complete circle from one part of the flying platform out to the rest of the board, and through these little lightning rods that are happening in the platform, and then back to the other side of that platform. I know it's so hard to represent visually, but that's what you're doing. And the reason why you're going through all that rigmarole is eventually, when you complete the series, toy factor, you are going to get a little pop from the rocket, and it's just gonna do make a little sound. Boop, boop, boop. I know I just spoiled it, but that's just to give you an idea of what kind of toy factor we're dealing with here. So in the Forbidden games are known for that toy factor. This one just takes it up to 11. It sounds really stupid, like, ooh, I'm going to get excited about a rocket ship flying, but it really is fun. Why do we play games? Games are fun. So that's what you're trying to accomplish. And in like any Forbidden game, there's a lot of ways you can die. First is by being in the way of the lightning strikes. If you are in the path of one of the wires, then you're going to get shocked anytime you pull that card that says lightning strikes. Or you can get blown off the platform with a high winds thing. That was, you pull high winds, there's a direction tile, you get to blown all over the place, and you can also die that way. So that gives you enough of a feel of the game, I think. Positives, I really dig this game. I'm really lucked out that we ended up on some positive games. There's some really awesome decisions to be made here. You have to be really smart about the tile laying. Like, you have to play, like, the wires are these, like, they're set lengths. You can't just, like, lay wire anywhere. And if you mess it up, then you're not going to be able to complete your series circuit, and you're just going to lose. Like, you can actually lose by just placing your wires badly because you did not plan out your tile laying carefully, which I've seen a lot of groups do. So that sets up some good decisions. The good decisions are also, like, there's a lot of other groups that will place tiles, and they'll really I have to finish the series circuit. I have to finish the circuit, and they forget to keep themselves alive. They just stand in the path of all the lightning, and then they pull like 3 straight lightning strikes, and they go from decently healthy to dead. Because that's the fun of the game, right? The fun of the game is to actually complete the wires and to lift up the rocket ship. So it's like, I'm going to live, right? Someone's going to heal me? No one's going to heal you. That is so enriched, so fun. The toy factor here is a lot of fun. There's a lot of opportunity for strategy. There's also like, the usual items that you get in a Forbidden game. You have teleport tiles. You can kind of like do that. You can make save zones. So like, I'm going to teleport to my save zone where I'm safe from the wind, safe from the lightning. You have to set that up. That doesn't just happen. All awesome decisions. This is my favorite Forbidden game. I'm calling it right now. One of my games of the year, one of my co-ops, one of my favorite co-ops. Hasn't quite penetrated like the top echelon of my co-ops, but I'm keeping it. I love it. The only negative I have, those magnets and those little wire rods are very fiddly. It's hard to make the circuit. You have this, you're supposed to have a moment where if you place the last wire, the rocket just goes. And I've never had that. I've always had to like, what's broken? Gotta fix everything, like fixing Christmas lights. Okay, which one's the bulb that's broken? Blah, blah, blah. And so that I don't get that pop, and it's very awkward. And, the table people, everybody's touching it. So it's like, all right, leave it alone. Just one person. That's the only thing. Everything else here, I love it. This game is great. So that was Forbidden Sky. Are you a Forbidden fan at all, Anthony?
I like them both quite a bit, but they just aren't my type of game in general, so they don't come out very much.
Well, like with your kids, like I imagine this would be a game. Oh, maybe your kids are a little bit young, but like, can you imagine playing?
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't know which one I'll pick up with them first. It probably will depend on which theme they're most interested in. But yeah, I think these are the types of games they like. We play Ghost Fight and Treasure Hunters all the time. I've played Pandemic with my oldest a couple times, so they like cooperative games because no one loses. Unless we all lose. So
yeah.
We don't have that angry child moment. But yeah, I mean, I was very tempted to pick this up at GenCon. It was towards the lower end of my list day one. And by the time I got there, they were sold out. But like standing in the giant crowd around the demo tables and watching people play that thing, it reminds you of like the electronic toys that we would have as games back in the 80s, except this is a really good game. Not that those weren't, but this is legit a good game. So
it's as heavy as Pandemic. Like Pandemic, especially like an expansion or two, can get a little bit heady, but you can handle it at the table. I think this is that weight. It's not more complicated, but there's still good decisions to be made. Like you still have to be smart because I've had plenty of groups. Like I ran this at a library. Like I played like 6 games of this, and I think only 2 of them won. And the other 4, either they just lost their faces off like right away because they did the hero thing. It's like, I can fix these wires. No, you can't.
It's like every game of Pandemic I ever play.
Or they lost in the very last turn, which is a really also, if you're going to lose, that's a satisfying way to lose. Because then you can look back and say, okay, I did this. I could have done that. I could have done that. Thumbs up. I mean, I know this game is not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. I love me some Forbidden Sky. That is awesome. So that is so many games.
Yes. That's a lot. We did a lot.
We did a lot of games.
I think I'm still not quite finished up over on BGA, but I don't think we covered quite as many games per episode over there. So I don't know. It might be a tie at this point.
Yeah, and we have more to come. The next couple of episodes, we're going to bring Liz and Jeremy back for the Kickstarter roundup. We have more delivered Kickstarters. There is so many games. Do not complain about the game content, people.
No kidding. Oh my gosh. My office right now is overflowing. So
we tried to cover all the bases. People who like games, heavy games. Maybe there's something in here that will hit your table a lot. So, hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, for this week's Gonna Web Me Everything, make sure you check us out in all the usual places. On Twitter, at ENGN_podcast. On Facebook, check out the ENGN Facebook group. Make sure you check out everynightisgamenight.com, where all the episodes are posted, along with reviews of some of these games, along with several others. And let us know what you think. If there's any games we didn't cover that you think we should have, anything upcoming that you'd like to hear more about, whether it's at Essen or PAX Unplugged, we will be keeping our eyes out and our ears down and trying to see what the next big batch of games to cover is later in the year. But for this week, that's going to go ahead and be everything. So until next time, go ahead and grab a solo game off the shelf and let's make every night game night.
Later, everybody.